when you give it to poor women and children, the terrorists come and beat them over the head and kind of take it. That's just what happens in every country where we do this. And so that's your solvency argument. Then you could turn that and say, this doesn't actually do this, this actually does this, and move it down to your disadvantages, and say that, for instance, more people die. And so because it doesn't do what they said it does something else, you can say that this plan would actually be worse. And that's almost the most effective type of argument. They say, people are dying. We need to pass this plan so we can save people. Here's why. You come up and say, actually, they said that people are dying, and that's why they want to pass their plan. Unfortunately, they're defeating the very goal that they set out to achieve themselves. The most important thing in this round, the most important thing is saving people's lives. You will save more lives if you vote against this policy. Here's why. And that's a really effective type of argument. I want to look at a number of different types of solvency points you can make under technical solvency. So there are different names for these, but they technically fall under the stock issue of solvency. And these all look at the workability of a plan. Will a plan work if you put it into the real world? So the first couple questions you can ask, is there funding? Who will enforce it? Will the timing work out? These look at the plan itself. So when you construct a plan, a lot of people have their mandate, but then they also have who's going to do it. So they'll say the timing will be in the next 30 days. The Office of Foreign Asset Control will implement the program. But for instance, if someone puts it under the Department of Justice to send aid to Syria, that's not going to work out because the Department of Justice has no foreign connections. You have to use the right agent. And so different parts of your plan have to work out. That's a type of argument that you can make. If you were to take this and put it in the real world, will it work with what they've told you they're going to do? The other type of solvency you could argue is root cause solvency. So ask the question, does the case solve the reason for the problem in the first place? So we look at the people dying. For instance, this is getting messy. We're going to look at the root cause of the problem. So let's say you have an inherency argument that the cause equals. Right. Makes sense. It's your inherency argument. The cause is not the fact that the rebels don't have enough money or that there's not enough aid. The cause is that these people have deep-seated hatred for each other in their belief systems. So your solvency argument is root cause unsolved, right? Okay. So solvency argument number one, root cause unsolved. Sending money does nothing to stop religious beliefs. It doesn't. And the reason for the violence is the fact that these people believe these things. Only an effective change to the belief systems of the people in the area can bring about a lasting change to saving people. Because even if you give money,
you're just going to use it more against each other.
Exactly. Another type of solvency is attitudinal solvency. I don't know if this would be used as much for the Middle East, but it's sometimes used in enforcement. Basically, you ask the question, will anyone comply with the implementation? Do people want to do it? And what we have is something called fiat in debate. We have the reasonable ability to pass our plan. But when we're passing our plan, we also have to consider who's implementing it and what's going to happen down the road. Because you don't have the power as the affirmative to make sure that your plan will pass forever and ever and ever. So if your plan is to send aid, someone could run a solvency point. We'll make this number one. Someone could run a solvency point about how actually the borders are sealed off. So the Syrian border guards aren't going to let your money or your military aid, your food, any of that across the border. They're not going to comply. even if you pass this policy, nothing is going to get to Syria. This doesn't happen. There's no point in paying for any of this, especially when there are disadvantages and we're wasting money.
Attitudinal solvency is big for the still a topic, because if the government implements a surveillance law that the people don't like, then there's going to be a lot of negative backlash against the government, which could cause them to change that policy, or strike that policy down. There's some people that don't like it.
True. And America works that way. America is a democratic republic. When a majority of people don't like something, generally that thing changes. Now, there are exceptions, Obamacare. But if 90% of Americans don't like the policy that you're passing, it's probably a good bet not to pass it. So solvency is one of the strongest stock issues because it's offensive. It doesn't challenge what they're saying, whether or not it's true or whether or not it really matters, but it says this won't work. This doesn't make sense because this and this and this. Because borders are sealed off. Because terrorists have a different mindset. Because, well, we don't have money. Because the money won't go to the people, it will go to the terrorists and the people who are strongest in the region. So for this reason, that reason, this reason, there's no sense in passing a policy to just blankly give checks to Syria in aid. It doesn't make sense. And you've defeated their policy. You win. Now remember, debate goes back to, should we pass this policy or not? If you remember on the first slide, this is all code for real-world debate. So all of these arguments, inherency, solvency, significance, topicality, I'll go back to the policy. Should we pass this policy? Under topicality, should we pass this policy if it's non-topical? Well, not really, because, well, first of all, we don't really have the authority to pass this because we are that branch of Congress that is supposed to talk about this thing. But secondly, we shouldn't pass things that aren't under the branch of what we were supposed to talk about in the first place. Under inherency, we can talk about how this plan has already passed or what is happening today and say we shouldn't pass this policy because it was already passed or because there's no need. Significance says this policy would actually do bad things. This policy, what it's thinking to do, its advantages are small. The aid really doesn't help many people, but all the bad things it does are terrible. And then solvency says your plan isn't going to do what you said it's going to do. There's no point in passing it. So every single one of these, inherency, significance, solvency, topicality, all come back to, should we pass this policy? And remember that. If you remember that, in the realm of arguments and the realm of debate, it will all make sense. Tyler, do you have a lecture?
I have a brief.
You have a brief? Okay,
No,
so...
I mean a brief thing that I want
Yeah, a brief. Okay, so I want to talk about one little thing. You're going to learn it better tomorrow, but you're going to learn it before everyone else, so you can feel special.
my thing will take it.
Yeah. The argument map. This is the way to put it all in real-world terms. I'll explain everything here, but if you like graphs, you'll love this. Everything in debate comes back to cause and effect. What causes what? What is happening? What is going to happen? What should happen? This is policy debate. So policy is all about changes. It's all about doing something. Right? So bombs cause people to die. Aid causes people to live. It causes people to get food. Or aid causes more money for terrorists. More money for terrorists causes more weapons for terrorists, which of course causes more terrorism and people dying. Everything is about taking that cause and looking to the effect. Drawing lines from what is happening to what will happen. So under the present and the future, which are the two components, basically what has happened and what is happening and what will happen. Under the present cause, we see inherency, harms, and topicality. Now, topicality bridges both. I'll talk about that. But Inherency is talking about what's causing things in the present. And your harms are those things that are bad, as the affirmative. The effect is significance. Your harms would draw over to significance. The impact. What is the effect of what is happening? Topicality has both. So for instance, topicality, there's a cause. You violated the resolution. You brought a case that's not under the resolution. This case has to do with something else, but not what we're supposed to be talking about. And then topicality also bridges over to the effect because there is an effect of topicality. The effect being, of course, the detriment of debate and the degradation of reality and the end of the world as we know it. In the future, you have your plan. So the affirmative proposes their plan. They have their mandates. They have what they're doing. And that is what they're going to say will happen in the future. That's what they want the judge to vote for. Because, of course, in debate, one side defends their policy, their case. The other side says, no, this is a bad idea. And so they're trying to convince the judge to pass it. If the judge passes it, it's a hypothetical. It's in the future. Their solvency is the bridge between cause and effect in the future. Solvency says, here's our plan, here's what's going to cause something, and here's what's going to happen. We promise you these things are going to happen, but solvency is how we get from A to C. It's B. Solvency is that bridge, that link. And so your future effect is what you're going to talk about, and what most debates should look at, the advantages and the disadvantages. Solvency, notice, is used for these because solvency, it may not be called solvency when you're looking at disadvantages, but there still has to be a link. There has to be something that links the plan to what is bad or what is good, saying what effect is going to come out of the plan, because it's all about cause and effect, right? You need a link to get from your cause to your effect. So if you're trying to say that aid will help people, you need a bridge. You need to say aid will help people because why? Because it will go to the right people, because we're paying it to these accounts, whatever your case is. Or if you're trying to say it's a bad thing, then you do need a bridge too. You say giving aid will go to terrorists. Why? Because terrorists are able to steal the aid from the innocent. And that's how it works. So you need the bridge. And that's really important because it goes back to claim, warrant, impact. Your claim is whatever you're saying. Your warrant is how you get from that point to your other point, how you connect that for your audience. Does anyone have any questions about the argument map? No? Okay. I want to point out one thing about debate and using stock issues. Debate often comes down to cost-benefit analysis, right? All right, that is an important term. Debate comes down to cost-benefit analysis. What costs, what the benefits, and analyzing what that means. Debate is talking about whether or not we should pass this. So the strongest arguments are going to be, we should pass this because these good things will happen. Then the strongest argument for the other side would be, we shouldn't pass this because these bad things will happen. So if you can, if they're applicable, these are the strongest arguments. Advantages and disadvantages. If you can find out some really terrible thing that's going to happen, that could be enough alone to convince your audience on why it's a bad idea. Now, these other things are important. Topicality, inherency, significance, to argue about what is happening, what is the proposed effect, will it actually happen, and you can actually knock out the advantages. So if you were to use a solvency point, you could say, actually, their advantages aren't really going to happen. These disadvantages are going to happen. Now, you remember weighing mechanisms, right? You guys all remember the different weighing mechanisms I showed you? Now, that works into here. If you're able to look at their advantages, say it's not that big, you can use magnitude, x versus y, whatever your system is to show that this side is better than this side. And that is how policy debate works. And that is your language to put in real-world terms. Present, future, cause, effect. Debate is nothing more than just another language to speak, to say about the things that you already know how to do. And that's how to do it. Do we have any questions? No? All right, fantastic.